Here we go for part 2 of the depth of field critique and little demos of Photoshop goodies for you. I still think we can do this in 4 parts. I may not be able to get to the last 2 until tomorrow, but once I get this one done, I'll post these first 2 so you can start looking at them. So here we go. And we'll leap into it with this pretty butterfly. This very nice shot of the butterfly. Beautiful use of shallow depth of field. If this were going to be a postcard, then down in here or over on this side would be a perfect spot to put some kind of text or copy dealing with light and airy things and being a butterfly. You could quote Richard Bach, who said that what the caterpillar calls a catastrophe, the master calls a butterfly. You could get into all this kind of stuff. If it's going to be a standalone shot of the butterfly on the leaf, then you've got a lot of extra stuff out here not doing much for you. So I think the only thing you would need to do is come in and crop it a little bit. Now, one of the things that Photoshop gives you when you're cropping and looking for composition is a series of different compositional tools and designs. And the O key toggles between them. So I'm just going to tap the O key. There's a fine grid. You can use this to see if things are straight throughout for architectural stuff. There is a kind of skewed rule of thirds on an angle. This actually works pretty well on that scheme. Here's another breakdown. I can't remember what this one is called, but it's a way of breaking things into areas to see what balances out. Here's a real Fibonacci breakdown of sizes, a true breakdown based on the golden rectangle. And then we have the golden spiral. If you hold down the shift key and hit the O, it will toggle this spiral around so you can see the center point placed in different locations and see just how it tends to work out. This one composes fairly well according to that. This is a nice tool. I know some people who use this particular compositional tool to drive everything. Let me get back to here. So one way they might do it is to pull this up a little. And now we're looking at the way this works around. This can be a really interesting tool for you to use. What I'll do, if I'm not sure, I may toggle through several of them to see if anything works. If nothing works, if none of these compositional tools, starting with the default rule of thirds, seems to work, then you really probably need to look at a new composition. Here, I'm a little concerned about the area up in here because it's a little distracting. I don't mind this leaf so much. But that to me would be my final composition for this shot. I think it's a tighter, cleaner shot than the original was. So let's move on. This was really nice. Not much to say about it. Of the 2 shots for this series, I'm going to start with the shallow depth of field shot. What was done here is that we've basically got the same composition with 2 depth of field versions, which is not exactly what I asked for. Also, when you're turning in stuff to me, I promise you I'm not going to steal your work. I'm not going to post it on Facebook or Instagram. I don't even like some of those places. And I fought for credits all my life. Don't mess up the composition with your little signature lines or watermarks or any of those things. Save those for other places. It'll make life a whole lot easier for me and for judging it. because this really is taking up space. Now, if this were a card and you were talking about things Batrachian, which I will let you look up and see how it applies to this, then that could be fascinating. As a shallow depth of field shot, I think this one works pretty well. It would be nice if the frog were actually concentrating on something, and maybe that's it. He's about to reach out and snatch this thing off of here, thinking it's some kind of huge insect or whatever. But from a depth of field standpoint, it works pretty nice. I would probably darken this corner just a little because it's a bit much up in there. Let me come down here and just get rid of that distraction. I might do the same over here because I want to see him. I'd also put some fill on this side of his face. So this one works. The shallow depth of field part works in this one. But let's take a look at the other one. Well, now we have an interesting problem. If what's in focus is the way you indicate what the primary element in the shot is, then the only thing that's in focus here is this middle ground with the foliage in it. The frog isn't in focus. In fact, it is so far out of focus, you really have to look to know it's a frog. I was helped along by knowing what the first one is. The ruins in the background, they're way out of focus, so we don't know what they are, where they are, why they are, what's going on there. And again, this is just ever so cutesy, but now you've lost it in the sky part. If you were going to put something like this in to protect your work, fine, put it where you can see it. But for our work, please don't. And for this shot, you've got to decide what's important. If this is deep depth of field, or supposed to be deep depth of field, max depth of field, this one isn't. The foreground isn't sharp. The background isn't sharp. We've got a little of the middle ground that's sharp. And that's pretty much it. So let's leap on ahead, so to speak. Well, we have a chessboard here waiting for something to happen. I'm assuming this is deep depth of field since all of the chess pieces are in focus. So we really ought to get rid of this up here. Now, you know me, my first choice would be to crop it, but I'm not sure I can and not do some damage to the composition. So let's find out. If I come down and do that, well, maybe. Thing is, I'd rather not pull all of that top part off. Since I'm cropping some of these, I could pull a little, maybe that much off. But that still leaves me with this. The way to deal with this is simply to clone it out. And I can do that pretty simply. I'll pick up the clone stamp. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. When I'm trying to follow a line and I'm trying to move it over something, I'll usually try to start my pickup right on that line so I can follow it. So I'm holding down the Alt key or the Option key, pick up. And now that's gone. This little bit of table or whatever this is, seat, whatever, is kind of in the way, but that's okay. It is, the purpose of the assignment was depth of field. You got depth of field. We're losing tonalities in here, but by now with all of the other uses of layer masks and that kind of thing, you do know how to fix that. And I would darken this lower corner just a little bit. So let's grab another one. Well, here's a pretty gnarly looking leaf. I'm not sure what happened here. A crop probably that went awry. Our catch here is that there's only one thing in focus. Now this is minimum depth of field, that's what it says on it, but it's so minimum that only these little spikes and maybe this tip are in focus. So you might want a little more. You might want this leaf to be in focus. Maybe this plane through here could be in focus. You probably want a little bit more. And this has such a powerful uplift to it with these leaves. These are like arrowheads pointing skyward. You can't ignore that. The horizontal composition pulls away from that. So if we could adjust our composition a little, it's possible we could make this a little stronger. There's a philosophy in that came from Germany. It's in the visual arts especially, and it's called Gestalt, and it refers to humans' needs to try to complete things. And here it allows us to visually complete things that we can't see. We don't have to see this tip to know that it's there. From the clues we're given here, we know these all end in a point, and we know how that moves us. So we can adjust things a little bit without losing our sense of what we're looking at. And with that, now we start to really create this upward thrust to the whole composition. I'd darken the background a little bit down into here, make this stand out. But mostly, I might want these two forward leaves to be sharp. Now, we showed in an older section how you can take something that's sharp and make it soft. Photoshop can do that easily. What it cannot do is take something soft and make it sharp. It just gets ugly. So the safe thing to do is to shoot it sharper than you need it, and then soften it as you must for your composition. Okay, let's move on. Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what to say about this one. I know it's supposed to be a foggy day, or I assume it's supposed to be a foggy day, but what this really looks like, especially since none of it is really sharp, is that some form of embossing, artsy type filter was applied to this to make it look like a bas relief or something like that. And in this case, since everything has about the same degree of sharpness, I'm going to assume that you started out with it all sharp, maybe a deeper depth of field. But in this case, whatever was applied to this simply is distracting. Plus, you've got one other big compositional problem. This fishing pole is so strong as a line, and it's going up out of your picture. It's taking everything away from the fisherman, the guy. This would probably have been better with a shallow depth of field and a reasonable tonal range. But as it is now, there's a lot that's going on in here that's just destructive to the main concept of the picture. So remember, decide on your picture. Let's say it's this guy. Now work your way around it so that everything else in the picture, everything else, contributes to the story about the subject you've chosen, not take away from it. Okay? Let's grab another one. Here's some nice flowers, starting out as a really nice close-up. My guess is that you hand-held this. And the reason I'm guessing that, whether you did or you didn't, if you shot this from a tripod, you need a new tripod, because nothing is sharp. I realize it's supposed to be minimum depth of field, but everything appears to be almost the same level of sharpness, which is blurry. And I'm guessing that's a product of camera movement, not a depth of field issue. When you're doing this kind of nature thing, especially if you've got a topic with all of this detail, like the all the detail in the flowers, man, you've got to make them sharp. You've got to really focus them well, and you've got to have the camera held rock steady. What we don't need is whatever this is in the background to help us. So even if this were sharp, we could make it better by getting rid of a lot of this. I mean, here's our subject. It's in the flowers. So why not just give us the flowers? What does the rest of it tell us? Zippo, except what kind of big leaves it's around. We need to see these. Well, I think standing in the middle of the road to take your picture is not a completely brilliant plan, but it does allow you to see maximum depth of field, although at a tilt. What should be horizontal, or what should be perceived as horizontal in this shot, is this kind of implied horizon line through here. So when you've got all of these incredibly powerful directional lines, make sure something that should be vertical or horizontal is. Here's how far off that is. Quite a bit, 5-10 degrees. And even the trees are off about the same amount. So your camera is a little off kilter there, and you need to straighten that out. We already did that in a couple of other shots early on in the best photo assignment, which I assume you watched, so that would show you how to do this. And then we really could use some detail in these skies. And right here is a huge bit of dirt on your sensor, which is going to need cleaning. So we'll grab another one. Oh, another nice butterfly shot. Different butterfly, different scene. This one works really pretty well like the other one. I think it has the same issue. You could put text up in here, but I think as a standalone shot, it's a good capture of the butterfly. But I would make sure we all know that the butterfly is the subject. And then we could do a little bit of darkening around it, which not only will add a little bit of detail, but it'll make the butterfly stand out a lot better. So play with the tones. Remember, guys, this is digital. You can do this. This may have been incredibly difficult, especially in color, in film, but it's incredibly simple in digital. And you're going to be expected by people who are looking at your photos to buy them or put them on the wall or just congratulate you on them. Unless they're on Facebook, in which case they will think everything is beautiful. If they have any kind of discrimination at all, they're going to be expecting you to do this work, because they may know how easy it is. So, come on, let's get in these, dig into these. Do everything you can to make them the very best shot. Each and every time you do one, do what you can to make it a really killer shot. This is a very, very, very good start. Well, this is a very nice skyline. Where is this? Is this Seattle? Is that the Needle? Or Toronto? Or is this in Canada? I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a very nice one. It's picking up the colors of the sunset. They are playing off of these grasses and everything. This is really a nice shot. And it's a good example of depth of field. Now, let me show you what you might do to enhance this. Once you've got a shot like this, and you're going to hear people say of it, it's really painterly, meaning it's got kind of the same tones and tonalities and senses that a painting would have. Once it's got that kind of quality, then you can get in and play with it. I think your cropping is good. I think everything else is good. I think we can add to this. So I'm going to add a duplicate layer, and I'm going to come down on this bottom layer, and I'm going to do some stuff to it. You've got this beautiful yellow from the sunset that's coming through here. I want to enhance that. But I'm only going to want to do it in some selected places. So the first thing I'm going to do is enhance it everywhere using saturation. Oh man, look at that. Woo. And I want to enhance my cyans just a little. What? Maybe a little blue. Okay. Now, I'm going to make a duplicate layer of this one. Remember, on top, this background copy is the original. This is what it looks like all by itself. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this, which will put this layer in between the two. And this layer, I'm going to make a luminosity layer and do our black and white adjustments on. And I'm going to lighten those yellows, and I'm going to darken the cyans and blues. Say okay. Now, here's my original. It's subtle, but it's there. So what I want to do now is go to this one and make it a layer mask. And I'm going to zoom in so I can deal with this a little more precisely. I need a black brush. Remember, you just need, when you have made a layer mask, if you've made a straight one, this will be white, in which case you need a black brush to work on it. If you've made an inverted mask, this will be black, and you need a white brush to work on it. So I need a black brush. I'm going to leave it at about 50% so I can build it. I just want to enhance that yellow a little bit. Now, look down over here. You can see where I've done that. Now, I'm going to come back down to this copy. And since I've started this, I'm going to flatten these two layers. I want these two now to be one layer that I'm looking through. How do I do that? I'm going to turn the eyeball on this one off. And I want to merge visible. The visible layers are the layers with the eyeball on it. Now, on this bottom one, I want to do one more thing. I want to make a contrast adjustment, and I'm going to do it with curves. Okay, so now we'll come back up to this one. Now, notice something. I was working on the other layer, so this one has lost the little brackets for the layer mask. The layer mask is not active until I click on it, and now those brackets are back. So now I'm going to take my black brush again. Oh, look at those start to pop out. See that come out. Now what I want to do, I'm going to drop this back down, and I want to bring that enhanced sky in a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to flatten this. We'll make a snapshot of it. And let's see what we've got. There's our original. We're very close. Well, all we did was something in the end that's pretty subtle. But look how it brought out some of that. Just made it pop a little bit. Think about these. Once you've got something that is painterly, then think about it like a painter would. Now we've got a scene where the yellow sun is really playing on this foreground. It's not that hard. You just need to practice it and do it. This is one you may want to watch a couple times to see how we did it. Okay, that's going to do it for part 2. I now, based on my clock here, have to run to go to another appointment. I'm going to try to get these 2 posted tonight, so part 1 and 2 will be up. It will take 2 more parts to do all of the depth of field, and tomorrow I'm going to try to finish off the depth of field and do the focus stack. I don't think I'm going to get the motion one done tomorrow, but I can at least get through the focus stack, and that will almost have us caught up. Hopefully we'll get caught up entirely by the end of the week. So here you go. We'll be back with another part shortly.